You got the record?
We are recording.
All right. Can I get a motion to open the moot?
I so motion.
Heard somebody, and then I heard a second. So I'll call that a open. Who was the first one? Just for the record.
That was me.
All
Just
right,
I.
so Lucas, and who was our second? It's got to be one of the Jarls.
I second.
Mike was the second. So the Dean can get a record. Awesome. For all of our Jarls, our counselors, if you got video, I'd ask you to turn it on. It just makes it easier for us to engage. Understand if you're not capable of doing so, but yeah, we're here tonight to discuss the amendments to the and updates to the Articles of Incorporation, the bylaws, and the rules, and then close out with a briefing from the Drossetti on our financial management situation. Hoping all the Jarls, you've all had an opportunity over the past some 3-ish weeks that we've been had them posted to read through the bylaws. I did post the newest version. The Articles of Incorporation version is 26.101. The bylaws and rules are 26.0103. So those should be the versions that we're reviewing and discussing tonight. To start off with, is there any major issues or concerns with any of those documents that anybody felt that needed to be addressed?
You can have some drink.
Directly
You can have
or
it.
resolved? Okay, not hearing anything. So we did have one thing brought up this afternoon that we can briefly talk about. We'll start with the Articles of Incorporation. Just for our members, for the record, we pulled the Articles of Association out of the bylaws and drafted a set of Articles of Incorporation specifically to align with guidance from the IRS for recommended language. These are pretty much boilerplate from the IRS's website. So again, anybody had anything with the Articles of Incorporation they felt we needed to adjust before we submit them to the community for review. All right. Nothing heard. Bylaws. Big changes to the biggest changes to the bylaws were removing the Hagothi as a voting member of the council, and then changing the number of Jarls on the council to an odd number to compensate for that. So the numbering of the Jarls will be 3 to 9. The reason I highlight that is just so once these bylaws are ratified, we will have to have a special election for another Jarl to increase that number to the proper number, which is now, just something to take note of. The other major change was moving the council to a 2-year cycle as opposed to a 1-year, more so to better align with state and federal filing for incorporated entities. Makes it a little easier. Plus, I think it gives us a little bit more continuity for us. Again, any thoughts, concerns, issues, anything with the bylaws, particularly with those, especially with those big changes that we're making?
Can I propose that until another Jarl to balance it out comes online, that you are still remaining a voting member, just temporarily?
I don't think that would be necessary, nor wise. I think once the bylaws are ratified, I would become a non-voting member, but I still retain tiebreaker vote in the case of a tied vote, which is part of why we want to have an odd number of Jarls, an odd number of voting members on the board, is to avoid ties in general. But should that happen at some point, I still retain the right to a tiebreaker vote. So I don't think we need me to retain a vote unless you have something in mind that you think would be an issue.
Nope.
Okay. Lucas, the thing you brought up, that was all in the rules, wasn't it?
It was a little bit of both. Which part? Because I brought up two things.
Oh.
But
So
most
yeah.
of them dealt with the Hagothi, so wherever you want to start.
So I think the part in the bylaws you brought up saying, like, what if a supermajority can't be reached? I think that one's pretty clearly defined in the rules about if a vote doesn't reach its required, quorum, it fails and it has to be redone. I would stand by that. I would stand by the premise that the Hagothi position should be such a position that if we cannot get a supermajority of the trig to cast a vote for that position, that should necessitate the entire organization coming to a pause until that occurs. Because the Hagothi is a lifetime appointment, and it's the spiritual authority of the organization and the community. I think that's something that should be it should be held at that level.
So, and I know we're wargaming at this point. What happens if your position has to be filled? Email goes out, supermajority is not reached, vote fails. We do it again. Supermajority is not reached, vote fails. We do it again. And we just keep in this loop to where we no longer have a Hagothi, which also probably means we're in the state where the organization itself is probably done with. And we no longer have the ability to, I forget what the word is, but get rid of the organization.
I think it would be the disillusionment
Or dissolution, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
and that would be, I think, one. Yes, I would agree. If we cannot get the trig of the organization, the members that have stood up and are dedicated, are actually involved. Which, to put a context to that, of the nearly 400 registered members, only about 40, I think 45 are trig. Right, so just kind of put a context there of how many people we're talking about. So we're needing about 30 votes cast. I think if we reached a point where we had to, and again, this is I'm
we
not
didn't
here anymore,
have we didn't have 30 trig at the last all thing. We didn't have 30 votes cast.
Well, no,
right?
and keep in mind this particular vote wouldn't necessarily be just an all thing, right? An all thing is a little bit
tracking.
different.
I'm just talking
right?
about engagement with the trig that we do have.
It would be an email sent out with a ballot on it to all of their emails. The last few times we've done that, we have reached that supermajority. But again, I think that's a point of the organization takes a need and says, hey, if we can't even get the trusted faithful of the community to elect their new spiritual leader and president, then what are we doing here? I think that's a valid point that the council and the conclave would need to come together and make a legitimate, have a conversation about that. Like, what is happening that we can't get this. But I don't know if that's something we could necessarily codify. I mean, could I just.
If we failed to reach a supermajority for the Hagothi, we also failed to meet our own requirements for dissolution.
Yeah, let's double check that. That's a good.
Because we have to have at least a supermajority of current voting members in the community in order to dissolve the organization.
So I think let's wargame a little bit in that mentality of, okay, and again, I'm not here because something happened to me, but
Hopefully not, obviously.
but in this case, I think you reach the point where you start looking at the reality of the 2223 in the bylaws that states that the council reserves the right to remove any member's right of trust if they fail in their duties to the community through an activity or violation of the bylaws, rules, covenants, and ethics of the community. I think you reach a point, again, this is kind of a nuclear option situation, but I think you reach a point where you've ran a vote for a high Gothi multiple times and you cannot get a supermajority of the trig to cast a vote. At that point, I think the council would need to come together and start looking at the trig themselves and saying, okay, who's not voting and are they legitimate? When is the, and we've done this for like some positions like scalds and stuff like that before. Never done it for a trig, but effectively looking at them and say, like, this individual, we haven't heard from them or they haven't been involved in the community for X amount of time, then the council, the Jarls would vote to remove their trig status. Again, you're getting into a very nuclear option, but
what's the current path of disenfranchisement? Would we have to hold a tribunal for each member in that situation?
It doesn't say. It just says the council has the right to remove the rights of trust.
If the council can't decide to make a new high Gothi, they're not going to be kicking out people who aren't
not
voting.
The council. Council doesn't pick the high Gothi.
If the community as a whole can't pick the high Gothi, then I would take it a step further and say the council isn't unified or isn't going to be kicking people out just to make a decision.
Maybe, and I would say, like, maybe we do need to add something to that 2223 that specifies this is done somehow, like either through a tribunal or, which is our standard, wouldn't be what I would consider to be the option.
If I may, mostly you operate as a president and Logmithir as a vice president, which in this case is religious leadership and chairman of the board, sort of. In my experience, these are just the lay terms that I'm going to use to pull out the ideas. So if you're incapacitated or you are the high drogger, now you're a zombie walking about, it should pretty much fall to Logmithir in some way. There should be a little caveat in that. And your bylaws, if I didn't know what you did for a living, and I mean this with all respect, I could figure out what you did for a living. We could put a paragraph just in the Logmithir that he would adopt your responsibilities in as far as keeping the organization going, and continuously running election.
Well, that we have. Right, like, so we do have this section, and that's kind of what the second part that Lucas had brought up, is that we have a section where if a counselor can't do their job, then the Logmithir, or actually a tribunal, can appoint. I'm just trying to grab the reference real quick.
I was just reading that as well. But I mean, without the title of Hagothi, it should still fall to the Logmithir, I would think, as far as the way that I see everything operating anyway.
Well, no, the way we've done in the past, like when I took a sabbatical, it was another Gothi, not the Logmithir, because we didn't want to take away from the Logmithir. They would, to put the Logmithir in the Hagothi role would effectively negate their role, their ability to serve in their other capacities that they have throughout the bylaws and rules.
Not to assume your responsibilities, but just your how do I say this? You just your authority for the time being until we.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's the entire the role of the Hagothi and the Logmithir serves as a check and balance of each other in quite a few places. So if one were to assume the duties of the other, or authority of the other, it effectively would. I mean, it would be a nuclear option of just detonating any check and balances in the. So
And the
what I
council-
would suggest. No, go ahead. Sorry.
The council will be the check and balance between the Logmathir and his attempt to fill the Hagothi. Do we not actually govern everything, and then the trade govern us as well?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think this is the Logmathir needs to do that because there would just be an appointed Hagothi 8 scene or temporary Hagothi.
Right.
So another Gothi, it's another individual eligible, right? That meets the criteria, which is to be a trig and a Gothi, would be appointed to that role.
For the time that you drop dead, or whatever, did the responsibilities then shift to the Logmathir?
No. What I'm saying is that the time I drop dead, the first act of business that the council has to do is initiate an appointment of a temporary. Like that becomes the first matter of business that must happen, and then they can proceed with anything else.
Led by the Logmathir, or
Led by the Hagothi 8 scene, the temporary Hagothi.
I mean, until we have one, it falls to the Logmathir to initiate all this.
Well, so what I'm saying is like the council and the Logmathir like together would have like that's the process, right?
I see. Okay.
Like they appoint that new person. Like that's nothing else in it effectively would mean, and again, I think that's a good thing, is that all business of the organization stops until that position is filled.
Completely concur with that.
Yeah.
We're missing each other's points, I think. It's just that he would be the one in charge. The Logmathir, he or she, would be the one in charge in as much as they could say, let's get this going and get the Edsinian. I think that's all just fine, and that would take care of itself. And if we cannot actually put somebody in temporarily, then we have much bigger problems than your death.
And that's what kind of Lucas was getting to, is like, and again, because I still would like to refrain from stating like the Logmathir takes into a position of authority in the organization, because again, that's the whole point of the Logmathir's role, is to not hold a position of authority so that they hold a position of check of, it's like saying your inspector general assumes command of the organization, right? Or your IG, like you don't want that person stepping in and taking a mantle of authority.
Right, and that's exceptionally wise.
So effectively what you have is the council states, hey, the Hagothis drop dead. That effectively is a leave of absence, an emergency leave of absence by 3274. A tribunal is called, and this is what Lucas was saying, like, okay, well, how do we call a tribunal? Tribunal is called to appoint a new Hagothi temporary. Because the Hagothi can't be on the tribunal, the Logmathir will appoint somebody to serve in that temporary tribunal capacity. So that's the role of the Logmathir there, to say, okay, there's no Hagothi to sit on a tribunal, and there has to be. So another Gothi will fill that role. The tribunal then says, okay, here's who we're appointing as temporary Hagothi.
That's exactly what I was talking about, like where the Logmathir is the one that would initiate these things, and it falls to the second, basically, checked by the council.
And I can just see what you're saying, that like effectively the Logmathir is the one that has to call the tribunal to initiate the appointment.
Yeah.
But where I would draw the line is just saying that they assume no other, but that is an inherent authority of theirs already. They don't take on any additional.
They don't take on your responsibilities. They just take on the responsibility of making sure things keep going and replace you temporarily until you become the hot rudder.
Now, the part that Lucas pointed out is just the way that the wording of the tribunal in 537, it basically just says if one of the members of the tribunal is subject of review, or there's a conflict of interest, the Logmathir will appoint an alternate. And he was saying, like, again, I would kind of say, like, if I drop dead, there's somewhat of a conflict of interest in me sitting as in the tribunal. So I think that I would be willing to say that applies. But maybe we add some verbiage there to say, like, okay, and effectively, if they're, add a part to that just says, or if they're just not able to be, if they resign or they're no longer in position.
I think
Which
that's covered them.
Did that all make sense to everyone else?
I'm good with it. I do think there should be some verbiage to specifically talk about what to do with the Hagothi should you resign or have a medical issue that prevents you, in case you have a midlife crisis and you decide this is no longer for you or something. Just so the future council has clear guidance on what to do. Because obviously, if that happens, you wouldn't be here to explain that to the council like you just
Right.
did.
And here's where that goes. That's in the next document that we were going to start creating called the procedures, which is because that explanation is basically here's how all these rules go together. Like, should something happen to the Hagothi and they're gone and they're going to be gone permanently. Here's how we apply these different rules. So effectively, one, we have this recorded now, so you'll have this on YouTube somewhere. You can always go back and reference in my untimely demise. But that is something that is kind of the next thing that I want to start working on, is starting to codify some of these procedures that aren't necessarily, don't belong in the bylaws and rules directly, but are more so just, con ops, plans type stuff.
Yeah. What happens if?
Yeah. How does the Scrifari upload YouTube videos? Like shit like that we can, the council procedures, duty position, positional procedures, stuff like that I will add to that section of the tribunal, 537, a wording stating effectively if the individual is no longer going to feel something in there about if I resign or die or something. And then I added a line to the bylaws 2223 that the removal of the member's rights of trust shall only be done following tribunal review of the matter, so that there's some clear, which is,
So,
I mean, how
originally the tribunal was only supposed to be utilized in that instance if there was some sort of violation or like rule breaking. So are we also considering that for inactivity? Or is that
that's
council business?
No, the intent of that is, so the intent of the tribunal has always been to adjudicate matters in a separate forum that hopefully prevents the council from acting unilaterally against somebody, right? Like they're having some type of external, okay, the council saying this member has been inactive for so long, and we can't even get voting done because we have so many inactive members on the roll. Rather than let the council unilaterally make that decision, put it in a tribunal's hands, let the tribunal adjudicate, and then the tribunal, because the tribunal is that's everything we use the tribunal for is that, right? In every case, and then provide to the council, yes, we would agree these individuals should have their rights of trust removed, and then the council can act on it. But that way you don't see, effectively disenfranchisement of members solely because, hey, we don't like that you voted against this thing that we're trying to do, and so we're going to take away your vote. We're going to,
Yeah.
It's meant to be that check and balance.
point of order from the trig. There was a suggestion to have a predetermined standby designated on a potential 6-month rotation, a ordained Gothi or Githia not serving in another position, just to have like a pre-designated fill as a procedure.
Yeah, I would. We tried that in the past where we had like designated deputies, and like arguably, I think it's not a necessary. Again, if I die tomorrow and you guys got to figure this shit out, like you got to figure it out, right? Like that's kind of like, and that's why the procedures are there, because then okay, well, what if the designated deputy is deployed? They deployed over the weekend, and now who does it? Who's the next deputy? And so we already had. That's where we put in the rules about the 8th scene. So we got rid of the deputies, and we created the temporary position appointment, basically saying like for any position that has to have somebody in it, here's the process, the rule to do that.
Yeah. That scenario sounds like divine intervention at that point.
I mean, again, like, no, and I mean, these are good what ifs because they help like sanity check our rules and bylaws, and make sure that we can use them. But I will tell you this again, like we're a spiritual organization and community. To go back to if you guys reach a point where you can't even elect a new Hagothi because there's not enough people willing to be involved, there needs to be a step taken back and a serious look at what we're doing, and whether we're doing the right thing or not, right? Like, we're here specifically for the spiritual edification of this community of heathens, and if we can't get the spiritual leader, if they're not even willing to be involved to help that, then I'd say we've lost the frith that is the cornerstone of what this community is supposed to be. So,
hey, while we're talking about bylaws and at scene, the final line in 3134, there's no time limit on how long they may serve. Is there any reason that's there and not under 3132?
okay, 3132.
Yeah.
Because 3132 discusses time limits on counselor et scenes, and then that seems like it was added on later, or maybe in the idea of a council reconstitution. I'm in the bylaws. Yep.
31. Where was the first part you said?
The last line of 3134, there's no time limit on the et scene for Hagothi or Logmathir. Is there any reason that's not under 3132 with the other time limits?
Yeah, I can move that. That makes sense.
I was just wondering if there was, like, I was reading it and I was like, okay, we're talking about reconstitution. Maybe that's why we're throwing that in there, but I wasn't sure.
Good catch.
No, yeah, that it may have just been when I was structuring this that line I left.
For the,
yeah, I just
the 90th time.
Yeah, so I just moved it to the ending of 3132, and that is there for that. Like we were talking about again, nuclear option. Everything's going haywire, and you need time to get stuff settled. At the very least, if you need your Hologothi and Logmathir for almost everything the organization does. So, and then effectively, if you're hitting that 3-month window anyway, you're basically looking at, okay, if we have so many people out, then you just call an all thing and form a new council, start over basically.
Hope we all don't get deployed at the same time.
Zach, you want to? Zach had a question about a different bylaw.
Yeah.
Seemed like a good point to.
I just wanted to make sure that after this was done, I just didn't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It's actually the rules, 1.1.4, dealing with the registered agent.
Yeah.
So the end of that says, they're considered an officer of AMH and will hold a non-voting seat on the council. Does that mean I just wanted the clarification, does that mean the registered agent could not be a Jarl? Which is fine. It would make sense. I just wanted it clarified.
That wasn't my intent. What I basically was trying to do is say is that whoever the registered agent is should always be part of the council.
Right. I understand that. I just
So
was
I
saying
think that should be worded. So sir, basically right at the beginning of that clause saying, if they hold no other council positions, they will inherit. Like basically, that's the idea. Like if you so for instance, you're the registered agent, but you're also the Drosetti, right? So your Drosetti responsibilities supersede that of the registered agent. Should there be a difference there on the council? But let's say you step down from being Drosetti, you remain the registered agent, so you would still need to be like present in the council to hold that legal role for the organization.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And it also makes sense the other way as to why you wouldn't want them a voting member. So I just thought it would be something that
I don't think the only reason I said non-voting in the sense that they are the registered agent role itself does not inherit a voting right of any kind on the council. Right. That's right. Just it's just meant to clarify that.
That's fine. I get it because they should be a member if they're going to be part of legally responsible. So that part makes sense. But you see how it could be read like they're not allowed to ever be a voting member.
So I'll put in there. Council will appoint trigger community and recognize such by the conclave. So after the word in which the organization is incorporated, full stop. If they hold no other role within the council, they shall be considered an officer in AMH and hold a non-voting advisory seat on the council. So effectively saying they default to a non-voting advisory seat unless they have another role which supersedes that, gives them something else on the council. Like, so if you were a Jarl, okay, you're a Jarl. You don't need to worry about being on the council because you already are. So. Good stuff. Anything else?
Good for me.
We put anybody to sleep yet? Does anybody have a baby that needs to go to sleep?
No.
Listening to us drone on about laws and bylaws.
Looks like
Hey,
Mike has a hand.
Question on that
Not gonna
while we're
lie, I'm
talking
tired.
about registered agents.
What's that, Lucas?
That's a question while we're talking about registered agents. So, do we need any special vote? Well, it kind of covers it, and I just want to clarify here because I'm looking at 1141. If the registered agent resigns, we'll appoint a new one. If they are no longer in the state that we are currently incorporated in and we cannot get one in that state, do we have to go through a special process to select a new state to incorporate in or change the incorporation? I don't know how that works. That's why I'm asking.
So effectively, the registered agent resigns. I'll clarify. So I think something you said that should be added to 1141 is should they resign or move permanently from the state of incorporation. Because effectively,
well,
it has
I
to
don't
be
know.
somebody that lives in the state, right? Like that's
Yeah. And I don't know how that works if we no longer have anybody present in that state for any reason. I don't know what that looks like as far as us having to change states.
Then
And
yes,
if we do
would.
have to do that,
Yeah, if we don't have anybody in the state to serve as the legal body present for that state incorporation, then yes, we would have to effectively pick a new state in much the same way we just did.
It's not a big deal. It's very easy. It happens
Yeah.
all the time.
yeah, I just didn't know, so I was curious if we needed to have that outlined.
Effectively,
Or
I
if it
go back to
was
113. 113 says the Hagothi will serve as the incorporator within the state chosen by the council for the purpose of establishing AMH. So effectively, if we have to, if we have to move incorporation, and it's just the council chooses the state we incorporate in. I think it just defaults back to 113.
okay. Yeah,
And
I'm cool with it.
we
I just
all
wanted to
have
The
clarify.
IRS 990.
And the,
What's that wrong?
It defaults also back to the IRS 990 form. You just change the state, and they
Yeah.
then you're tax applicable in that state
Gotcha.
or not.
and I'll say, just to help clarify a little bit, Lucas, so in Indiana specifically, if the registered agent was to change address or change register agent, you have to notify them within 31 days of that,
Gotcha.
that happening. So
Is there a penalty if we don't notify the state within 31 days?
Probably lose it.
Probably, yeah, we lose our incorporation. Yeah.
Do we want to change the 30-day window then down to a shorter window so we have plenty of time to notify the state, or is that
Yeah, we
That's
can do
IRS.
we can do shit within 14 with 2 weeks basically.
I would think something like that would constitute an emergency moot anyway.
or at least a discussion inside the council? Yeah. All right.
ideally, if that was to happen, the registered agent would give you plenty of notification, though.
So here's I'll just post it. I reworded this. That's I should have just grabbed the
I don't know,
numbers.
Zach, if you just decided to drop dead tomorrow, I don't think you'll be notifying us anytime soon.
Well,
I would
there is-
appreciate some notice. A lot of people dropping dead around here, guys. Like,
Yeah, we've been talking about everybody else dropping dead. We might as well go ahead and just talk about that too.
I
All right,
kind of
so I
gathered that none of us is allowed in the same room at the same time. Like, this is what's going.
It's basically like
Designated
Congress. You
survivor.
can't. Yeah. You got to have at least 3 or 4 people sequestered away in case bad things happen.
All right, so I posted in the chat, just updated that paragraph. Should the registered agent resign, no longer be eligible to fulfill the duties, or move outside the residency of the state of incorporation, we have 14 days to pick a new person, and the Hagothi has to notify the state within less than 30 days of the vacancy. I think that
Yeah, looks good.
that's that. Other thing I needed to fix was the tribunal piece. Added that to the anybody see anything else?
Yep. They are certainly thorough.
Yeah.
Joey, you and I could have just had a one-on-one here, man.
I know. What did you even bring us for?
Well, Brandon, what do you got?
I honestly, I read them and I was like, this is good. And I'm starting to realize everything's well above my pay grade and capabilities. So
That's how I'm feeling.
I'll throw it in some chat GPT and say, give me some smart things to talk about.
Right?
They are
Okay.
busy. Sorry.
All right. So I've got, I think we've got the bylaws. I think we've got pretty much everything covered. Should I save that?
Since I didn't get an itinerary for this Moot, do we have any other orders of business?
Yeah, I mean, we was on. Yeah, there was an itinerary. We do. I think we're anybody. All right. Sorry, trying to do 27 things at the same time is never good. I think we're all good with the amendments. Get a motion to table that business.
So moved.
I would
All right.
second it.
Yeah, rolling in a second, so we're good there. I will print these to a PDF and give them to Will. As a logmathier, you present them to the community. I'll kind of basically what we do is you'll just email them out to all the trig. For there, they get a 2-week review. My recommendation is that we plan for the bylaws. At least we have to hold an all thing to ratify them. My recommendation is that we get these emailed out tomorrow, and then we look to hold a all thing on 13 June in 3 weeks that evening. That way we can hear if the trig have any issues, that they can ratify the bylaws. That'd effectively be the day of ratification for all 3. And then we can press forward. And technically, if we hold an all thing, then if we ratify the bylaws first, we could then also call for a nomination of a Jarl at the same time and elect a Jarl at the all thing if need be, or we can just push that to a paper ballot or an email ballot. But all right. We have the Drossetti going to give us just an update on our financial management committee.
So I had sent you guys a budget, and there's been some changes. What we originally were trying to do was we were going with crowded, which was kind of going to be our all-in-one, cover everything, all the bells and whistles. And if it's okay with the logmathier, I would like to invite a guest to speak as to why that is not a good idea. And then I can give some updates after he speaks.
They have the floor.
Hey, Justin, you're going to have to drop out. I've just added you the permission, but you'll have to drop out and come back in.
I'm trying to get into
You should be good now.
You able to hear me? Perfect. So for those that don't really know what I do, I am an internal revenue agent for the IRS. Big long words. Basically, what that means is I'm an auditor. But I deal with the Internal Revenue Code, the Internal Revenue Manual on a daily basis. When it comes to making donations through things like GoFundMe, Crowded, and stuff like that, those donations are not considered to be a true donation to an eligible organization because somebody else takes control of those funds prior to it ever reaching the designated organization. So what I have suggested to Zach is through the bank, which I think Zach, you correct me if I'm wrong. It's U.S. Bank or
Yes, we have a U.S. bank account, and it is Zelle eligible.
okay. So yeah, so through Zelle, if donations are made through Zelle, or if the council eventually did where they wanted a square attached to that account as well, they could do it through there because those are just a credit card processing or a transfer, and those funds are going directly to the organization versus a third party intermediary. As an auditor, if I see that they're trying to do this, we typically, do not allow those as charitable donations. Other things that you would have to know is that by them going into a thing like GoFundMe, and then as soon as you remove those funds, that is a taxable event. Rather than it being a donation, now it's a taxable income on the organization. And it's an ordinary income item so it's taxed differently than other items. And so that was the big thing that I wanted to let you guys know as you're making decisions on how to operate those funds, is that there are very strict rules, and you're going to want to set up as audit protection. So like if you do that ahead of time, then in the event that the organization was selected for audit, it's going to protect us. And then the other item with that is, say Joey makes a $100 donation to the organization. I would highly suggest having a form letter prepared by the organization ahead of time, to where you could just drop in, Joey, and he donated X amount of dollars on these days for a total taxable year of this amount. This way, you can have that for every person that donates. And if the Drotsetti, as the one that is handling all of that, keeps an Excel spreadsheet and then drops that information into these letters, automatically just sends those out. Then for the donor, Joey in this case, if he were to get audited or questioned on his charitable contributions, he now automatically has proof that, okay, yeah, I've done this. Here's the letter from the organization. There's no questions as to that donation. That letter would have to contain the EIN of the organization, because that number, an auditor will look that up and make sure that they are listed as a charitable donation recipient.
That makes sense.
I think that's something, Zach, that you should be easy to do. Is we can get a form drafted up.
Yeah. So the other thing was, after we learned this information and some more, these fundraising platforms, there's also every one of them. We wouldn't even know when we would get the funds, because they hold them and then they process them, which wouldn't, what is it? The Google Workspace is going to be a monthly bill. So, it's just not a good route at all. When I talk to US Bank, we can do through Zelle, we can do what's called a Zelle tag. And I just threw an example out of, I think I picked like Modern Heathens. It's one word. The donation would come to the account instantly, and it would not share, any banking information, account numbers, routing numbers, anything like that. The drawback to Zelle is, I guess it's real hard to track who donated the funds. Because all you'll see is a bank account number that came, or a transaction number that came in. We could use, huh?
Well, that's problematic.
Well, what I was going to say is for those of us that's going to donate and maybe doesn't necessarily care about deducting it on our taxes. Like, for example, if I give $50 a month, I'm not going to claim it at the end of the year. So I wouldn't necessarily need a form. But they said it could be corrected with QuickBooks, which would auto import everything in. And then we could do the form through QuickBooks. We could also go the Square route or the Stripe route or both. I mean, we could use all three. But with QuickBooks, it would all import. And I think QuickBooks is like $38 a month, which
Yeah.
which would probably help for the end of the year when we have to do our certified accounting.
Yeah, I think we were intending to get, like, that was part of our plan when we hit this point, is to get something like QuickBooks, like to use as our accounting management software. I think Justin had something else that he wanted to offer.
Yeah, so with the QuickBooks, I highly suggest using QuickBooks Online versus the desktop version. Reason for that is the Drotsetti changes. And so as the Drotsetti changes, they can just they don't have to, pull a backup, send it over to the other person, all of that. It's easily all done there. You can pull reports such as profit and loss. You can keep track, like he said, of donors inside of that.
Yeah, we don't.
I
let's
believe-
not get too in the weeds of the specifics, but yeah, that sounds good.
I believe you can
that's all
even
stuff that
set
I
up
would
that
like.
level.
Right, that's all stuff that I'd read. Like, financial management committee can sort out and develop. Like, I don't want to spend everyone's time, building the house right now. But
Yeah.
I think QuickBooks Online is exactly what we wanted to do anyway.
So what I was going to say is after talking to the bank and doing the research, I would kind of suggest that we use both Zelle and Stripe. Stripe is something we could put on the Facebook, like a QR code or an actual link. And then with the QuickBooks, that would, the Droseti, instead of compiling a report for the council will get it through QuickBooks, which is kind of like another check in a way.
Nice. Yeah.
And then as long as so Zelle just kind of puts more work on the Droseti, which is no big deal.
Is there, do you like Stripe? Like, is it, I'm not familiar with that one at all, but like, is there really a reason like to have both? Like, or is.
No, Stripe has a processing fee. 2 point, hold on, I got the number right here. I think it's 2.9%. 2.9% plus 30 cents for each transaction. Whereas Zelle is the same as hand in cash. That's why I said if someone, like if I was willing to pay for the QuickBook monthly fee because it's going to make my life easier, I would rather do that via Zelle because then all that money goes to that instead of Stripe getting their access.
There's something I saw this when I was doing my own research, but if anybody donates more than $250 at a time, we have to give a receipt of that. That's actually like, I think that's actually in the IRS somewhere. I was reading a bunch of random shit, but Justin's shaking his head. So like we need as part of this like process. So here in the next week or two, right, sounds like we need to get a QuickBooks Online set up. So that way we can be properly auditing any incoming funds and making sure that we're like keeping track of who's donating what.
And some of this, unfortunately, you have to kind of use it to see what it offers, or you're just relying on what other people say, via videos and stuff. But I think in the Logmathere has access to the U.S. account to view.
Yeah.
And
then they should be able to see the QuickBooks Online too. I'm assuming like you can.
So we could probably get multiple users on there. Yeah.
So I would say as long as nobody else on the council objects, go ahead and start putting together QuickBooks Online. Start get that set up. Because I think we need that in place before we really go live with donation requests. That's what it sounds like to me. So
Just tell me where to send my money, man.
Well, and the other thing, I wasn't sure how quickly we needed to get like the Google Workspace and stuff transferred over for the Dorsetti to start paying. That was one of the reasons I explored the Zelle option.
yeah, and so if you can get, as soon as possible is a goal, but I would rather like if you get the QuickBooks set up, Zelle and Stripe. Once those are all set up, it sounds like we're ready to go live with donations.
Yeah, so like I can tell you for a fact, like the Zelle, if I could open it right now and you could donate, and then we'd have funds in the account. Right now we got $100. So
that, I just want to make sure that we have like again the QuickBooks to me sounds like the most important piece of that. All that we've got something that we can audit, manage, keep track of all the money in an easy way. So I'd get that if you can get that set up this week.
well, I guess, and this is the first time, so a little clarification is it's going to cost.
Yeah, and I'll send you money. We can put money, like we can do that. Yeah, I mean we're gonna have to pay there's going to be, and we knew that, right? There's going to be sustainment fees to running a 501c3. Like that's
right. But I was just saying, I think the process, right? Just for clarification for everybody, is the council has to approve it, and then you authorize it with me. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like budget. So like once we need all this updated in the budget. We need to set it up, and so we can like start actually getting all this flowing.
Yeah, I've got the budget. Like I'll be able to send you guys the budget here in about 10 minutes.
So yeah, so we can look at that in the chat, and then again, if everybody's good, if nobody has any issues, we start pressing. We do have the June 15th is when the one of the domain account payments due for the year. It's like $15. So if we have this before then, we can transfer that. If not, it's coming off my pay anyway. So,
and the reason I suggested Stripe over Square is it says Stripe's more for online. Plus, down the road, we can get a nonprofit discount through them.
Nice. Same with Google Workspace, by the way. Google Workspace, as soon as we get our 501c3, Google Workspace becomes free. They have a free nonprofit version once you're 501c3 filed. So,
and a quick registered agent update. We've got 2 pieces of mail. One was Brenda Williams asking us to vote for her.
Can you, speaking of, are you able to go into the account? Usually you can log into the account online for the post box and check. There's an option to like get a scan.
I already got that set up. Yep.
Okay. And if you can just have that going to the council mailbox, email address.
Okay. I'll see if I can get it transferred over to that. I'm sure I can, but yeah, but it was that, and then we got a letter for whoever used to have the PO box.
I think Justin had something else about the.
I just wanted to say that I needed to get ready to take off. So if the council has any questions for me before I do that, Otherwise, I am going to take off, and you guys can reach out to me or Rebecca as needed.
Yeah, I know. Like Zach, we've talked about this. If you can get with Rebecca and see if she can get into the financial management committee, she doesn't have a conflict of interest anymore. Like Justin can't be in that committee. He has a conflict of interest with his job, but Rebecca can, and she is a genius at this stuff. Probably smarter than Justin too.
Well, I
Yes.
was gonna ask for clarification on that because there was something in the rules I read that no one on the financial management committee can have access to any of the stuff. And I thought that there might be a possibility that we could use her as an auditor or for our CPA. So I didn't want to cause a conflict there.
So she's not a CPA. She holds a license called an enrolled agent.
Or
That's a
enrolled
license directly. Yeah, that's directly through the IRS. And so what that means is she's allowed to practice before the IRS. So in the event that AMH got audited, she could serve as the representative for the organization to help navigate through the process for that.
And that section of the rules, since you mentioned it, it should read they should not have executive like execution. They shouldn't be able to expend fund. Like the members of the committee are just there to assist. They can't.
Signatory authority.
They cannot appropriate funds.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I've been knee deep in bank talk and fundraising talk, and I may have got a little confused there.
So I'll clarify that in 6221 as well.
I can ask my wife about it. I mean, technically, she is a banker.
Well, while the council's here, I'd like to put Rebecca on the financial management committee if there's no objections.
So one question I would have for that is I don't think she's listed as a trig at the moment because she's also not heathen. She is just her friend.
So yeah, before we do that, let's make sure like again, there's a process for putting somebody on a committee. So let's just we can do that. Offline, we can do that. First, we got to make sure that she is willing. Just the first step. You can't just put her on there. So, okay. Jarls, do you have any questions about like our direction here? We're going to get an updated budget from Zach with all these the things that we're trying to work. Part of which one is going to be the QuickBooks online, and then I mean we should be ready to start pulling donations, making things happen. Any questions?
I have 0 questions.
Okay. Zach, do you have any questions? Or you feel like any clarification you need from us?
Like I said, as long as I know that, first of all, there was a little misunderstanding between the crowded and bank account, so
Yeah,
I hope that's resolved. And I'm assuming I'll go ahead and set up QuickBooks. I should be able to do that this weekend. I will post like what the cost is for your guys' approval in the chat. Just to make
I would say if you just put the budget together, if you just do that and have that in there by tomorrow, and we can look at that, and then if everybody's good with it, then you can just go ahead and start prepping that stuff.
Okay.
Acting upon the budget that the council approves.
Well, then I'm good. I should be able to have it posted tonight for you guys.
All right. All right. Will, did you any random thing that popped up that we didn't resolve that I wasn't tracking?
I know, I'll be up in a minute.
I don't think so. I think we've got a good way ahead in case anyone abruptly dies.
I do. You think so? Okay. Well, that was all the business for this special moot, so we'll go ahead and bring it to a close. As long as the Jarls didn't have anything, do I have a motion to close the moot?
I motion to close this moot.
I got a second from Roland. All right. Dean, you've got the recording. If you can draft up